All right, so it's official. Henry Cavill will not be returning as Superman, which for me and a lot of other people is very disappointing news. So, with that news, I decided to review 2013's Man of Steel, and this film was directed by Zack Snyder. I'm thinking I might actually end up reviewing the Snyder cut of the Justice League. I think I might watch pretty much all the films that Henry Cavill is in leading up to that, and those films would be this film here, Batman v Superman, Justice League 2017, and then the Zack Snyder's Justice League from last year. So I might review all of those. I know Superman technically showed up in Shazam, but it wasn't Henry Cavill. And he also showed up in Black Adam, but I already reviewed that movie and honestly don't really want to give it more of my money in the theater. But yeah, 2013's Man of Steel, like I said before, directed by Zack Snyder. And the screenplay is by David S. Goyer, story by David S. Goyer and Christopher Nolan, and based on the character Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. The cast here, we have Henry Cavill, of course, as Clark Kent slash Kal-El, which is his Kryptonian name. We have Amy Adams as Lois Lane. We have Michael Shannon as the villain, General Zod. We have Diane Lane as Martha Kent, Clark's human mother. We have Russell Crowe as Jor-El, Clark's Kryptonian father. We have Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent, Clark's human father. And then Alet Zurer, hopefully I'm saying that right, as Laura Lorvan, which is Clark's Kryptonian mother. Also in the cast, we have Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White, which is kind of like the boss around the Daily Planet. Kind of a side character, but I do think he has a few very impactful scenes. One in particular, towards the end, in a particular destruction scene with, along with Michael Kelly's character Steve Lombard and Rebecca Buller's character Jenny. If you have watched the movie, you know what scene I'm talking about. But that scene had me in tears. So yeah, for a small character, he has a few very impactful moments. We have Christopher Maloney as Colonel Nathan Hardy, which is one of the military men in this movie. Harry Lennox as General Swanwick, again, one of the military people. We have Richard Schiff, hopefully I'm saying that right, as Dr. Emil Hamilton, which is kind of like the doctor, the scientist that they keep around the base and whatnot, I guess, to like study the aliens. Not a very huge character. Andre Trow, hopefully I'm saying that right, as Flora Ol, which is one of General Zod's minions, I guess you could say. I think she's the only one here that I actually have credited. That's pretty much the main cast for you. But yeah, in this movie, you do get the origin of Superman. You get to see Krypton be destroyed. Um, and I like that kind of stuff because, with the character of Superman, we haven't seen his origin as many times in live action as we have with somebody like Batman. And in here, I think they have a really good setup for his origin, and I like the way that they do it. For the most part, I would say that I think the Krypton stuff goes on a little bit too long, but I do like being immersed in that world right up until it's destroyed. Spoiler alert, but everybody knows that origin by this point. And again, everybody knows the origin, but they want to show it while not doing too much of it. And they don't show you like immediately leaving Krypton, crashing on Earth, being raised by his parents. They show a lot of that in flashbacks, which I don't necessarily mind. I'm sure the movie would have been a lot longer if they kind of filmed it in a linear path where you have him leaving Krypton, crash on Earth, being raised, and seeing him kind of become an adult. That would make it a lot longer of a movie than it is. Not completely sure what the runtime is on this film, to be completely honest. It's a lengthy film for sure. I think it's maybe close to 3 hours. Is it over 2 hours? I'm not. It has to be over 2 hours. I'm pretty sure it is. But yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily feel that runtime if that is, what the runtime is, 2.5 hours ish maybe. Because the entire time, for the most part, I really am enjoying it. It does slow down a little bit in parts, especially in those flashback parts, and especially when you start to get those flashbacks closer to the climax of the film, where you're just like, all right, I want to stop seeing the flashbacks and just kind of see the action right in front of me. But for the most part, I really do enjoy those flashbacks, and one in particular really gives me like with the way, because up until a certain point they show like different actors for like kid and teenage Clark Kent up until a certain point, and then they show Clark Kent kind of like maybe in his like early 20s ish, maybe. It doesn't look weird or anything like that. I think he's like maybe at this time, maybe like also late 20s, early 30s, possibly. So it doesn't look too weird, but the way his hair was really reminded me of, and forgive me, I don't remember the actor's name, but the one from Smallville. So yeah, just those moments I like to see for sure. I like the little Smallville kind of like glances that we see of the town, and just kind of seeing a little bit of him growing up there. I wish we would have gotten a little bit more. But yeah, there are a couple actors here credited. One in particular that I want to mention, Jaden Gold, who plays Lana Lang, which is a very, very popular character in the Superman mythos, I guess. She's somebody that Clark grew up with in Smallville when he was a kid and also was a love interest, I believe. So she shows up in the, well, not this actress, but the character shows up in Superman and Lois, which, by the way, I haven't even mentioned yet. If you haven't watched Superman and Lois on the CW, I highly recommend checking it out. It's also on HBO Max along with Man of Steel. So if you have a subscription for that, you can go ahead and watch the first season, at least, is the one that I watched. I think the second season is done now, pretty sure. But the first season, at least, from what I saw, was really good, and I very much enjoyed it. Tyler Hoechlin, I think, is a very good runner-up for Superman, right next to Henry Cavill. Honestly, I think he embodies that character very well. But yeah, I don't think he'll be coming into the movie realm or anything like that. But I think that would be really cool if he got to play the character in live action for a movie, because I think he's fantastic. I think he would be a really good replacement for Henry Cavill if, I'm. It's not even an if at this point. I guess we do have to, you know, recast him, which is unfortunate. I don't want to see him go, but yeah, I mentioned most of the cast already. There is one thing in particular I want to mention before I really get into the nitty gritty of the movie, and that is David S. Goyer, the person who wrote the screenplay and story, along with Christopher Nolan there. And excuse me, he is a fellow Michigander. He's from Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is the home of the Michigan Wolverines. That is their university there, Michigan University. And funny enough, he also worked on Batman v Superman, which I might be reviewing maybe next week. I'm thinking of, and I don't know if I said this already, but I'm thinking of maybe week to week, reviewing, this week Man of Steel, next week Batman v Superman, week after that 2017's Justice League, and then after that 2021's Zack Snyder's Justice League. Just basically want to review each movie that Henry Cavill shows up in as Superman in. He showed up in Black Adam too, but I already have a review for that on the channel, and I don't really want to spend more money on that movie, to be completely honest. But I want to watch those movies and just kind of give my opinions on him as Superman while also just reviewing those movies for the first time for the channel along with this one. But yeah, David S. Goyer, fellow Michigander. I don't know why I got completely off track of what I was saying. But yeah, he also worked on Batman v Superman. And funny enough, some of that movie was filmed in East Lansing, which is also in Michigan. And funny enough, also is the home of the Michigan State Spartans. It's the Michigan State University there. So Michigan University and Michigan State University are rivals. So it's just kind of funny that they filmed a little bit of that kind of in the rival college town, opposite of where he was born in. So cool to see that he's a fellow Michigander. And cool to know that they filmed a little bit here. I remember them filming that, obviously before the movie came out. And funny enough, it was actually right across the street from a comic book shop. I don't think it's there anymore, unfortunately. But the place they filmed at, and I'll tell you what scene in particular they filmed at this place for. But it's called the Eli and Edith Broad Art Museum in East Lansing, Michigan. I haven't been inside the building yet. I've seen it from the outside plenty of times, and it has very interesting architecture. The particular scenes that they filmed, I don't know for sure if they filmed interiors, because again, I haven't been inside. I don't know what it looks like. But they at least filmed the exterior shots of this particular museum for that scene in Batman v Superman where they're showing up to the gala and Clark meets Bruce for the first time. You know what scene I'm talking about. The whole thing where Bruce shows up and Clark's like, "Who's that?" And he's like, "Oh, you must be new. That's Bruce Wayne." Yeah, that area. So cool that it's filmed close to where I live. Very neat there. But let me see here. Also, somewhat recently, they filmed a little bit of that movie Detroit's close to a town near me, and then Real Steel as well. So, yeah, just kind of interesting Michigan facts there because I feel like Michiganders don't get enough credit. But let me see here. The music, first of all, is fantastic. It's done by Hans Zimmer, which arguably is one of the greatest movie composers of all time. He has composed music for a lot of films, a lot of Christopher Nolan films in general, or not in general, but in particular, such as Interstellar, Inception, Dark Knight trilogy. Pretty much everything Christopher Nolan has done, he has done the music for. Um, yeah, he's a great composer. Definitely check out his music. I'm sure you've heard something that he's done in a movie that you've watched. But yeah, let me see here. The biggest complaint that a lot of people have with this movie is the destruction. There's too much destruction in this movie, and to a certain degree, I do agree with people on that. Especially towards the end, where you already have so much destruction, you're coming off the high of seeing that destruction, and then it just leads into more destruction, which makes me think there's a particular scene earlier in the movie with a lot of destruction where I'm like, maybe you could have pulled back on that scene a little bit, to make your climax not seem like it's doing too much, like it's trying too hard. And at times it does feel a little bit like that. But the destruction in general, the amount of destruction in this movie, the scale of the destruction, it almost adds to the movie more than takes away for me personally, because it just shows that these two gods, like it just shows that if they're fighting to the death, nothing in their way is going to stop them at all, whether it be a person, a car, a building. you know they will go right through it. So it's crazy to see the scale of it. Even just in the beginning where, spoiler alert, but obviously Krypton is destroyed, just seeing the destruction of that and seeing the scale of that, it's breathtaking. It's insane just to watch that much destruction going on, and just to put your brain in that situation of, oh my god, there's hundreds of people down below. Even later on, there's a particular scene where, there's a car being flown up in the air, and I don't think you really see the people inside, but you do hear screaming, and you just know that they're not going to make it out of that. And there's a lot of really dark moments in this movie, while also still having that glimmer of hope that Superman is supposed to have. But yeah, let me see what other notes I have here. How long am I recording? Not too long, but still a little lengthy. Yeah, I haven't really seen any other Superman movies, to be completely honest. Maybe as a kid, I watched a little bit of that Brandon Routh movie. Superman Returns, I think it is. But yeah, other than Man of Steel, and then obviously the other appearances that Superman has along the DCEU, I've seen those, as well as Superman and Lois, as I was talking about before. And then a little bit of like animation stuff here and there. I've seen like Flashpoint. I think that might have been actually the only reference I have in terms of like movies and stuff. And then there's the games, of course, Injustice. You know, those are the references I have, and when it comes down to it, Henry Cavill is the person I think of when I think of Superman, because I kind of grew up at the time where, that's the Superman that there was. And I don't think Superman Returns ever made like huge splash in the movie industry or anything like that. I don't think it did too well, from what I remember. It came out when I was really young. So, with the effects that they have here, with the scale that they have here, I think this one just does it right in so many different ways. But yeah, let me see here. And there's plenty of ways that this movie doesn't do things right. With the villain in particular, General Zod, I think Michael Shannon is fantastic as the character, and he's fantastic with what he's given, because some of the dialogue that he's given is just complete BS to me, and he essentially is just repeating the same thing the same way a million times in different ways, or not the same way, but like he's repeating the same thing a million times in different ways. There's one particular scene where he says, "This ends two ways, Cal. Either you die or I do." And I'm like, yeah, that's typically how a fight to the death goes. Just like stupid dialogue like that just doesn't feel necessary. Speaking of stupid dialogue, maybe not stupid dialogue, but like stupid writing in general, is just with Amy Adams as Lois Lane. I'm not hating on it because it's a female character, because they try to make her an empowering character, an empowering female character at times. They show her not being afraid to like go into whatever situation she needs to get in to get the story that she wants. But more often than not, she gets herself in these situations and can't get herself back out. And so you have the man come and save her, essentially. I get it, it's Superman, and it's kind of a classic thing for Lois Lane to be saved by Superman, but you're trying to make her an empowering character while also having her in peril more often than not. So, you know, eh, Zach, come on. Maybe he didn't write that aspect. He just directed, but I'm sure he had a lot of insight on that too. So maybe it was him, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But just for me personally, I never really got too attached as Amy Adams as Lois Lane. Definitely got more attached to her in the Zack Snyder's Justice League, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, let me see here what other notes I have. Most people already know the origin, like I said before, but you know, unlike Batman, we haven't seen the origin done as many times, so they kind of get away with doing the origin here. Now, would I want to see another Superman origin movie? Maybe not. I don't know. Speaking of Superman origin movies, check out Brightburn. Might not be the greatest movie ever, but it's basically Superman if, you know, he became evil as a kid. Pretty crazy. But yeah, let me see. I prefer Batman over Superman, but this is my favorite DCEU movie. Maybe second to Suicide Squad, or The Suicide Squad. I think I said that before, but just reiterating that in case I didn't. But yeah, there's just a lot of really impactful moments. I think I mentioned that thing with Lawrence Fishburne's character, that particular moment that he has. Super impactful with his character, even though he is such a small character. They give enough light to the side characters, the human characters in here, the everyday characters that people can relate to, the people that were just at work when things started going down, and you know, they're now in a life or death situation. It puts you in their shoes, and that moment in particular is one of the moments that just hit me the hardest. That and a moment with Kevin Costner's character, you know, Jonathan Kent. This movie does deliver on a few different a few different moments of emotion that I think worked really well for me, and actually had me in tears. And in those moments, I was just like almost shaking, just because I'm like, oh my God, I just like have goosebumps almost because of the way this movie is making me feel. And, you know, having watched it before, it never really made me feel that strongly about it before. But I don't know, maybe sometimes movies just hit me a little bit differently at different times, depending on how I'm feeling, I guess, and depending on the mood. Especially lately, I feel like I've been a lot, it's been a lot more easy for me to cry at movies. So maybe I'm just getting soft as I get older. Maybe that's just what's happening to me. But yeah, let me see here. Flight is my personal favorite song from this album by Hans Zimmer, so I'd recommend that one if you haven't listened to it or watched the movie. As you can tell, I haven't really mentioned anything in too detailed about the plot or anything like that. You know, it's a Superman movie. Superman comes to the Earth. Comes to Earth. You know, he has to fight General Zod, which General Zod is also from Krypton. So, you know, it's essentially, you know, two people with similar power sets fighting, and it's a lot like a Marvel origin movie like Iron Man and, you know, Captain America. A lot of Marvel origin movies follow the same formula, but here, you know, what they do differently than Marvel is the sense of scale, and then the darkness to this movie that Marvel didn't really have at the time, and I think is still trying to kind of gather over time with their films and shows. But yeah, it's not afraid to be dark at times. It almost pushes that PG-13 rating when you really look into it, like the moment I said with the car full of screaming people that weren't going to make it out of there. Like, there's dark things in this movie that they don't necessarily point a whole lot of attention to, but when you think about it, you're just like, oh my God, this is dark. There's one particular spoiler moment in here that I will mention at the very end that I'm not sure about. Man, I almost don't want to like mention any spoilers in here for the people that haven't watched this movie, but it's been out since 2013, so if you get something spoiled for you, I apologize, but I'll mention it at the end of the video, or at least at the end of the review, just for the people that have seen the movie and want to hear what I have to say. But yeah, let me see what other notes I have. I have a lot of notes here for sure. Zod's message to the world, like he sends this message through TVs, And honestly, like as soon as the TV turns on and his message starts, I'm just like, oh my god, it feels like The Ring. It's so creepy. And that's probably the best moment that Zod has in this movie is a moment where you really don't even see him, but like his message in general is just sends chills down your back and chills down your spine, and all the lights go out and stuff like that. And it's just like with the TV static and stuff on the TV. Oh, creepy. I hate that shit. Yeah. So that kind of played into some deep rooted fear that I have. Yeah. Let me see here. I think I already mentioned the fact that people complain about the destruction and that it doesn't really bother me. Superman, to me at least, for being Superman, for being a superhero, for being a comic book character, for having these unrealistic aspects. This is the most realistic Superman has ever felt. Maybe not the most realistic a superhero has ever felt in a movie, but the most realistic Superman has ever felt to me personally. At least when it comes to DC, or at least the DCEU, this just feels the most grounded as opposed to a lot of the other DCEU films. So yeah, there you go. I think that's pretty much all I want to mention in terms of this movie, because the review's already over 20 minutes long and my throat is getting sore. But yeah, have you seen 2013's Man of Steel? What did you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you in the middle? I definitely love this movie. Again, reiterating this, one of my favorite DC movies, DCEU movies, if not my favorite. So yeah, that'll tell you what I think about that. This is a movie that's on streaming, so I will rank this with my streaming service ranking system, which is premium subscription. Makes your subscription seem like you're paying for. Oh my god, let me just restart. Sorry, people, it's getting late. It's like past 2 a.m. at this point. That's always when I end up recording for whatever reason. But yeah, premium subscription makes your subscription seem like a bargain. Standard subscription worth the price of the streaming service. Basic subscription, not necessarily bad, like pretty good for the most part, but not necessarily what you're paying for. Sorry, little battery message just popped up on my screen. But yeah, then free trial, worth watching if you get a free trial, and then cancel your subscription. So bad that you need to cancel it and maybe even ask for a refund. This obviously, I wouldn't say it's necessarily premium subscription. I wouldn't say it's worth buying a subscription to HBO Max just to watch, but I would for sure give this a standard subscription. If you have HBO Max, it's definitely worth watching, and it's worth the price of admission. I guess you could say admission to your service. But yeah, the one thing I did want to talk about in terms of kind of spoilers is at the very end where, you have, Superman holding Zod's head like that. You got the lasers coming towards the family. All right, I'm going to say this right now. Did that family die? Because I've watched this movie several times and it never really sunk in until now that they don't really show the family like moving around after that. So did they die? Like when he snapped his neck, did that just like, whoosh, like just end that family? Comment down below, because I don't think there's any concrete answer to that. I think the only person that really knows is like the people that worked on this movie, like Zack Snyder, David S. Goyer, and maybe even Christopher Nolan. I don't know. Maybe they're all in on it, but I want to know. I want to ask them. Like that's my burning question. I want to. And David S. Goyer, I feel like is my guy. He's a fellow Michigander. I'm going to try to get him on the podcast at some point, or not the podcast, but the YouTube channel. Sorry, I'm so used to saying podcast still. But yeah, I want to try to get him on the YouTube channel and interview him and talk about this movie in particular and ask him, did that family survive? Because I have to know, because I don't know when that review will happen, probably months from now, maybe a year from now. But I don't think I will sleep until I know the answer to that question. Not really, but still. Again, watched the movie so many times and it never really sunk in until now. I just assumed that he saved them and he was just upset about killing Zod because he didn't want to kill somebody. But maybe he was getting upset because not only did he kill Zod, but he also killed that family. And that would add a lot more depth to it. But at the same time, after that, it cuts to like Superman crashing a drone, like a military drone, and be like, "Yeah, stop spying on me." And I'm just like, wow, that's crazy to go from possibly a family dying to, "Hey, you little stinker." And then like one girl saying, "Oh, he's kind of hot." But like, yeah, comment down below. I mean, I feel like there's not really a concrete answer. I feel like there's no way of actually knowing unless you're the screenwriter yourself or director. So, yeah, I mean, if you think, I don't know, if you have a theory, comment down below. I hate that it's going to spoil the people that haven't seen it. But again, it's been out since 2013. So, get over it if you get it spoiled for you. But yeah, having not seen this movie, sorry, I just spoiled the ending for you. Are you planning on watching this? I hope so at this point. But why or why not? Comment that down below. Yeah, and how do you feel about Henry Cavill not coming back as Superman? Are you upset about it? Do you not really care? Are you happy about it even? Comment that down below. Really, anything you want to comment, I would love to hear from you. I respond to pretty much all my comments. So, really, anything and everything, comment that down below. Leave a like on the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload, and I will see you in the next one.